He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to the Marlow Show. Last minute decision. I did not make this Hawaiian Shirt Friday. We're finishing the week strong. We're finishing the week with a jacket. I like my jacket-shirt combo that I had going, so I'm keeping it on for the show. We are recording late today for two reasons. First of all, we are watching in real time as Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump meet in Alaska, historic meeting. I'll give you the details that I know at the time we're recording, but it's not a lot. It's not a lot, and I was trying to wait to see if we're going to get something because I thought maybe we could use my competitive advantage in the marketplace that I am not live. Sometimes it's very detrimental to the show that we're not live because it means we can't, have dependable callers. It also means that people are in the habit of just logging in and locking into the Marlow Show every day. But there's some advantages, which is that, if we think news is going to break, then maybe we can hang out and do the show after. Well, we tried, and not a lot of news has broken. So we will have that for you on the next show, which will be Monday. I will tell you the next week will be interesting. And I'll tell you for the other reason why we're late. The other reason why we're late is because I'm on now day 2 of 7 straight days with no nanny. Carolina, my wonderful nanny, is not around, and she is a visiting family. And it changes the schedule. I'll tell you that. I've built my life in such a way that I've got a lot of flexibility, but I also have a lot of work to do. So this is the curse of working from home, is that it's never off, but it's also never fully on. I mean, I got to pick up my boys from school today. That was nice. And my 3-year-old cuddled me while I did some emails earlier in the day, which is most families don't get to have that, or most men don't. But also it does mean that things never stop. So next week, I've got a couple of interesting developments for the show. I'll tell you about those. I'm hosting for Larry Elder on Monday and Tuesday, so that's an evening live national show. We already have an amazing slate of guests lined up for you. I'll save that. I'll tell you about that on Monday and Tuesday. But what we'll probably end up doing is repackaging some of those into the podcast, and then I'll tack on some fresh content. So it'll be a little different, but maybe better because I might get some calls going and some live quality, which I miss. I do miss it, and I've been open with you guys about that. And that's the goal, to make the show a live show at some point. But in the meantime, we're going to take the advantages that we have. So that's coming up. So next week should be interesting. A lot more guests and a lot, hopefully some live interaction with some of you who, if you're a Larry Elder listener, make sure to listen Monday, Tuesday. And I might do Thursday, but for the aforementioned nanny-less week, I don't know. That seems ambitious to take on all 3 as of now. So we'll do those, and I hope you will enjoy. But it's a great week today. It's a victory week for me, and it's a victory week for Breitbart and for the Marlow Show, and for thanks to my colleagues at Salem, et cetera. A lot of great stuff happening with Breaking the Law, which is finding a big audience. I'm pleased to see that. Cracked the Publisher's weekly bestseller list today. So just keep getting good news. And I think only good things to come, because I do think that as people start realizing that the scandal of the 21st century was not the Biden cover-up of his mental decline, which is absurd. And no one covered that up at all. Everyone knew about it. The left just acted like it wasn't a big deal because they knew that Biden was a better candidate to beat Trump than Kamala Harris or Newsom or anything like that. And the Russiagate hoax it's up there, but they're related. They're connected. In a way, the Lawfare is an extension of the Russiagate hoax. As I've explained numerous times on the show, and I'll continue to illustrate this point, we wouldn't have gotten those felony convictions without Russiagate. So there's a chicken and egg thing there, but they're both big. I wanted to share. I don't have any fresh Breaking the Law content for today that's a bleeding edge. I will get back to reporting new stuff from the book, giving you guys little drips and drabs from the book. But I will share that I'm getting some excellent feedback from those of you who have read it, and I want to read a couple of quick reviews. This is one that I saw on Amazon. In fact, let me go and grab this just so I can get the whole thing for you, because it's okay, here you go. I devoured this book. It brings all the receipts. I mean, whether you're Republican or liberal, it's a factual must-read. I picked it up out of curiosity to remove myself from the sensationalist news cycle and 140-character anathema. That's the Twitter X platform. To see and think for myself in silence and in long form, there must be consequences for the sake of our republic. This is 10 times Watergate. And this is from Alexis T. Thank you, Alexis. This brings the receipts, 10x Watergate. Another customer saying this is a great read. Marlow brings receipts once again. Marlow is MAGA. Another comment from TF. Marlow stands up for POTUS when others turn their back. So it's nice. Get those positive reviews. All 15 reviews just thus far on Amazon are 4-star. The Goodreads platform, which is much harder to get perfect reviews. I'm at a 4.7, which is higher than my other books thus far. Nearly perfect score. I think perfect score is still on Audible if you guys want to hear me perform it. So I highly recommend it. And you'll learn a lot, and it'll continue to be relevant as more investigations take place. Anyway, so I'll get back to more cutting edge breaking the law stuff next week as convenient. But I did want to share one interview that I did with Jack Posobiec on his show, Human Events Daily, which is on the Real America's Voice platform. And he's the Twitter superstar. And John Cassio, who's been doing social media for me here at Salem, he tidied this up to make this seem pretty nice. This is about my best articulation of why the book mattered that I caught of any of my appearances. And so I wanted to share this with you on today's Marlow Show.
When you turn on the TV, it's Donald Trump is weaponizing the FBI. Donald Trump is weaponizing the DOJ. Donald Trump, they keep using the word over and over and over. And it's like they forgot the last, you could say the last 10 years, but certainly the last 4.
Yeah, absolutely. The New York Times had a big podcast / article that just came out this morning about how the Trump administration is trying to go after Obama. You guys have got to absolutely be kidding me. I go through all the lawfare against President Trump from even before his post-presidency, but after January the 6th, the thing went into hyperdrive. These 6 cases, the 6 major cases against Trump, each one is more corrupt than you would imagine. Each one in coordination from Joe Biden's White House and, of course, the upper echelons of the DOJ. You've got all these political actors who ran on the promise of busting Trump, busting him for crimes he didn't commit, creating crimes out of whole cloth, and they got the nerve to act like Trump is doing anything improper. Trump needs to go after all of them. They're all part of the cabal. You know it, Jack, as well as anyone.
Well, and I remember being there, I think it was March of 23 when the very first indictment with Alvin Bragg. I always say this is the joke. They keep trying to say that there's something else, something other that we're going to be able to get to with President Trump. And it's like this guy. I struggle and I fail to come up with any significant American figure who has been investigated as many times as Donald Trump.
It's not even close. This is one of the things that was a pattern of all the cases, is novel interpretations of the law. This is where you've got things, they're testing legal theories that have never been tried before. And they do this because maybe they'll work, but even if they don't work, they're going to tie him up, they're going to distract him, they're going to bankrupt him, and they're going to waste a bunch of his time when he's trying to campaign. And that was really what they had going, is that they were thinking we're going to embarrass Trump before a campaign. We're going to get him branded with things like rapist and convicted felon, both of which were completely bogus. And then maybe we'll get lucky and he'll end up in jail. Joe Biden's team specifically thought Trump would be in jail. But worst case scenario, we're going to make this guy's life a living hell. We're going to send a signal that no one should follow in his footsteps. Thus far, it's backfired, but no one's head is rolled yet. There needs to be widespread investigations. The Tish James one has got to be just the beginning. The Jack Smith one, it's got to be just the beginning. We need at least a half a dozen, if not more. And people need perp walks and handcuffs, bottom line.
And
okay, so you guys see where I'm going here and why this matters so much is that this is such a scandal, the widespread nature of this, the fact that they were trying to destroy a man's life, to deprive him of equal rights, equal justice under the law, to try to bankrupt him, to try to embarrass him, try to drag his name through the mud, to try to put him in jail, to try to make it so his family members couldn't do business in New York City, for example. All of that because of politics. It's proven. It was coordinated by the Joe Biden White House. And we're just being way too casual about this. And I'm not going to stop yelling about it until people start paying attention. It's not just about selling a book. It's people think like I'm being a salesman or something. That's not what this is about. It'd be very unlikely if I profited more from the book than what's already baked in the cake. This is about I think I've exposed was the scandal of the century, and people are into it. They're interested. But I feel like we got to ramp it up. We got to get some momentum here going so that people fully understand. Because if we don't get people on board with this concept, that the lawfare against Trump is happening now. It was way worse than people thought. No one's been held to account. And if we don't start holding people to account, at a minimum at the polls, by us voting out every liberal that's out there, but hopefully in terms of actual justice. I know there's a lot of investigation fatigue. That was the subject of my Breitbart Fight Club interview with Peter Schweitzer today. Those of you who are Fight Club members, you check that out, my Breitbart Confidential show. We talked about this stuff. I understand this, but we cannot be satisfied. We cannot be resting. We need to get fired up right now. That's the point, that we need to get fired up right now to hold the bad guys accountable, or they will only continue and things will
This is something I talked about this last year. You're coming in and really nailing it down this year as well with this book. People say, well, what about the norms? What about the norms? Here's what my worry is, and let me ask you what you think of my analysis here.
Sure.
My worry is, and I've said this to the I've said this to the president, that if we don't act now in terms of trying to rebalance the scales, they're going to do it again.
That's the point. So the first portion of the book is trying to give people that context for what really happened in each of these 6 cases, that Trump, as a superhuman figure, was able to navigate, was able to beat many of them, and the ones he lost, he was able to save face. They're all on appeal anyway, and win an election from a courthouse instead of being able to be allowed to campaign the way he should. You learn stuff in the book like how he's still under gag order from Juan Merchan's court. He's still got $175 million in bond up for Letitia James's court with Arthur Engeron. Crazy stuff that's gone on. He's still appealing the cruel and unusual $90 million judgment in the completely bogus E. Jean Carroll case. So he has all these distractions that are out there. And I want people to be able to keep it straight because the investigations are going to come. And I want you all to be able to enjoy it. People in your audience, Jack, they should be able to enjoy when these investigations come down, and they will. So I think I help in that regard. But to your point, the last portion of the book is a warning that these guys are working right now. They're creating new initiatives to use lawfare. Project 65, founded by David Brock, the guy who founded Media Matters. You know what he's doing now? He's trying to get attorneys who represent Trump and people like you, Jack. They're trying to get them disbarred. It's not just, debanked or deplatformed or stuff that we knew about. They're trying to get it so you can't even work at all. It's not that you can't get some kind of great 7-figure white shoe law firm job. No, that you cannot practice at all, that you plied a trade, you learned a trade, and now you should have that taken away from you simply for trying to give good representation to MAGA people. That's the warning. That's what they're doing now, and they're going to try to rig elections with it too.
Wait.
So I wanted to emphasize this for obvious reasons, is that I want people to get this message that the alternative to stopping lawfare is to allow for this to continue to escalate. They tried to take over Hollywood. They use that to win elections. They tried to take over the media. They use that to win elections and to prosecute, bogus impeachments and stuff like that against Trump. And then they tried to commandeer our boardrooms and change our culture, ruin stuff like the Disney brand, the NFL brand. And then now what they're doing is they're not just trying to rig elections with lawfare. They're not trying to make it just so that conservatives can't work at a nice firm. They're trying to make it so that people can't practice law at all if they represent people like Donald Trump. Just think about the Miranda rights. Think about the idea that you're entitled to an attorney. One will be appointed to you if you can't afford one. I mean, I thought that was the spirit of what this country is all about. I have a lot of issues with the Miranda decision, by the way. We could do an interesting interview with someone on that. But that's just the way it's been. We've accepted that as the gospel in this country. And so now you get in a position where you lose your law license, you get disbarred just simply for having conservative opinions. It is way more outrageous than people are letting on.
Suddenly, you've got the lawfare. Then you've got a situation where you want to be able to defend yourself against the lawfare. You can't even find someone to represent you, and that's why they go after the Jeff Clarks and the John Eastmans and all the rest of it, and even Giuliani, who had his law license suspended, and again and again. And it's people. I almost think it's like when you put this book out, Breaking the Law. Let me ask you this way, though, and we've been through so much. Are people receptive? Are they receptive to the idea that this has actually gotten as corrupt as it is?
Yeah, this is something, because this is my burden as now I'm in the selling the book mode. And so there's a certain group of people who think we already won because Trump won. And that's not true. We won the battle. The war is still going on, and they're going to use lawfare to try to rig future elections, to try to make it so that our cities are even more chaotic and more lawless than they already are. And they're going to use this same playbook against Republicans who are not going to be as strong as Donald Trump was, and they're not going to be as rich as Donald Trump was. Donald Trump's wealth was a huge ace up his sleeve here. But the other group of people that I got to convince is not that we already won, is that nothing's going to happen. There's no investigations. No one ever gets held to account. And I want to speak to those people, and that's why I want to speak to lawmakers as well. You have got to get accountability here. Promises made, promises kept is essential to MAGA. Jack, you and I talked about this on my show at the Turning Point event a couple weeks ago. You have to have promises made, promises kept. And one of the promises that was made to this audience, the Jack Posobiec audience, the Alex Marlow Breitbart audience, and the Trump voter, is that we're going to hold the bad guys accountable. It's not enough just to write opinions about them. We now have to go investigate them and then go figure out the actual crimes they committed and hold them to account. It's got to start right now.
That's it. The lawfare is more widespread than anyone could have imagined, and you need to fully understand it in order to appreciate what's going to go on with these investigations, keep them straight, to make sure justice is done for President Trump. It's call to arms, call to action for lawmakers to get those investigations and get people accountable. And for the rest of us, that we can't trust anyone. The only people we could trust are ourselves. We get fired up, ready to vote, and we got headwinds in that regard because you got all of these billionaire financiers that I get through who are trying to make sure that that lawfare superstructure is expanding despite all the losses they've taken lately. It's expanding. All right. That's my pitch for the day on breaking the law, the importance of it. And we'll have more next week. Try to get you guys some specific new details just to make it interesting and spicy on the show. American Beverage Association, my friends over there, I just got to say, we're booking a big event with them. Looks like in October, so I'll fill you guys more in on that when that happens. But I want you to think for a minute about the drinks you grew up with that you still love today, the ones that you got to have at the barbecue or in the break room or when you're between podcasts. Talking about Coke, Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, in my case, the Diet Coke, and it's the Diet Dr. Pepper. Those are mine. These iconic brands are part of the American story, and they have been for over 100 years. With everyone talking about American jobs lately, the companies behind these beverages have been walking the walk the whole time. America's beverage companies are making American products with American workers in America's hometowns. They employ over 275,000 men and women in all 50 states. These are people who show up every day, do the work, and deliver for our economy and our communities. You can see for yourself everything they're doing at wedeliverforamerica.org. That's wedeliverforamerica.org. Really important. If I ever bring anyone up on the show that is a sponsor or helps me out, and you're at all thinking about supporting them, you've got to do it because these are high quality people. They're strong partnerships, and they're doing good work. I'm not backing them. That's it. That's my promise to you guys. All right. So we're keeping an eye on this historic summit. Trump and Russia, they're meeting in Alaska. It's the first time a Russian leader has been in Alaska since they sold it to us in 1867. Which is in a former life it's interesting because in a former life I used to research stuff like this and I used to feel like I had a sense of his historical context, and I did not bone up on it before the show today, but it's the Russia sold us a long time ago, and no Russian has been back. You can understand why. So that's already historic. And again, I mentioned this briefly yesterday. The media is acting like it's an outrage that they're going to Alaska. It's the China and the Biden administration met in Alaska. So I don't get it. I don't get why that would be an outrage. Trump is also doing something that's sort of unprecedented. It doesn't seem like he's pre-negotiated any victories. This was the sort of thing that weaker politicians, people who have more Fs to give than Trump does. Trump has ran out of Fs to give. A silver lining of the lawfare, I think he stopped giving Fs. Fs as in the letter that starts a 4-letter word that you're not supposed to say in front of children. So he's not worried about getting any dubs. He's not worried about any pre-negotiated pieces. He wants the big thing. He wants to forge a peace with Russia and Ukraine. And that's why he's going, and he's got a great attitude, and let's see if he gets it. And if he doesn't, he's going to go home. And that is the clip that he said, do we have this clip? I think this is it. Yeah, we got this. Misty pulled this for me. Check this out.
What will make a success of this summit today?
I can't tell you that. I don't know. There's nothing set in stone. I want certain things. I want to see a ceasefire. This is not to do with Europe. Europe's not telling me what to do. But they're going to be involved in the process, obviously, as will Zelensky. But I want to see a ceasefire rapidly. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today. Everyone said it can't be today, but I'm just saying I want the killing to stop. I'm in this to stop the killing. You know, we're not putting up any money. We're making money.
Just remember that when you go online, and most of you probably don't even bother anymore, which is kind of sweet, is that if you go online and you try to, head over to CNN or New York Times and try to see how they're framing this up, that a lot of them are going to act like what Trump is doing is negative. I mean, it's overwhelmingly positive. Does anyone doubt that Trump wants to find a solution where there's less killing, where there's less death? I have no doubt that at a minimum, that's what he wants. And maybe some people on the left, maybe Adam Kinzinger, or as he is known on X, the Everything app, Adam Kinzinger, Slava Ukraini. Maybe these people really want Ukraine just to win, but really isn't the goal. Are we really that vested in who wins and who doesn't? No, we should be invested in just the bloodshed stopping. As a Judeo-Christian nation, our one and only hope should be the bloodshed stops. Nothing else really matters, does it? We don't want Putin rewarded, but Putin's been devastated. Russia's taken a huge blow on this. Not to say Ukraine hasn't, but I'm saying that Russia's done terribly in this war. So who cares who gets to notch the W? What matters is the killing stops, and this is where he has great clarity. It's a very simple way of phrasing it, and lesser men would be, I think, deterred from doing that because they'd be afraid of coming off as intellectually unsophisticated. But Trump doesn't care anymore, and this is the right framing.
They're buying our weapons, and we're sending them to NATO, and NATO's sending us big, beautiful checks. But I don't care about that. I care about it was a big factor when Biden spent $350 billion and got nothing. But what I do care about is they lost last week 7,011 people were lost, almost all soldiers. 36 people in a town which got hit by a missile, but over 7,000 soldiers. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. So I skipped ahead. This was the clip I wanted. Check this out.
In the office with President Trump on Air Force One, heading in. What's your initial feeling? How are you feeling about what you're going to get out of this?
I think we're going to do very well. Our country is doing very well. We're setting records economically like we never have before, including the stock markets are all at a record high. We're taking in trillions and trillions of dollars with tariffs. We're going for a meeting with President Putin in Alaska, and I think it's going to work out very well. And if it doesn't, I'm going to head back home real fast.
I mean, if it doesn't, you walk.
I would walk there.
It's just that's what you want. You feel like you're getting the real deal from him. Obviously, are the deal, so he doesn't give away too much. But isn't that the approach we want? He's showing up in good faith. It's on American soil. It's on a place where obviously the optics are great because Alaska, Putin coming back, or a Russian president coming back. And if you're watching the visuals, and I didn't have time to pull a bunch of them before the show, but we got them up at Breitbart News. I mean, Trump looks totally alpha. He really makes Putin look small because Trump is such a big physical presence. Trump's got his red power tie. They're both smiling because they're smart. They both have that good body language, even though Putin's kind of shrugging his shoulders a little bit. He probably does feel small. Putin's probably getting old. He's probably a little sick. And, they got cool signage. They had a conversation in the Beast, one of our those reinforced limos. So the optics are really great, but Trump just says, I'm going in with the best intentions, and if it doesn't work out, I walk. That's it. Nailed it. He just nailed it. He's so good in the foreign policy. I told you, I gave him an A+, the first administration, which my reappraisal of his first administration, it's putting some distance in it, I really am finding more missed opportunities than I knew there were a lot at the time, but I'm finding even more as I look back on it historically, but not the foreign policy stuff. Foreign policy stuff is just across the board awesome. So they're greeting each other, handshake. They took a ride in the Beast. Europe's ready to rock on this. UK says it will put boots in the ground if a ceasefire is agreed to. So he's going for the big thing, and hopefully we'll have more for you. I mean, hopefully there'll be some good news. The only story that's really breaking through at the moment as I'm recording this Friday afternoon here, evening on the East Coast, is this guy Brian Krasenstein, or is this the right Krasenstein? I got to name check the correct Krasenstein here. But this is a online personality who was flat out calling for the assassination of Putin on America's soil, which is, it's kind of risky. There's a reason why. There's Brian and there's Ed, they're brothers. So I want to make sure I got to get this right for the attorneys. This was Brian who did this. They should have snipers in Anchorage, Alaska, ready to take him out as soon as he shrugged. And later he said he should use poison, so it was more subtle. I'm just telling you that this guy doesn't speak for the left, but he's one of the most popular left-wing social media personas. And all of these accounts are not, they're not necessarily he's pinned it to the top of his X app thing. So he got 1 million followers, but I think he got deleted and then he had to restart from scratch. These guys are very big in social media. And I'm not saying they speak for the whole Democrat Party, but no, they've got a real violent streak and they hate Russia so much that they're not afraid of nuclear war with them, because you would think that there's been, if we assassinated their president, that you would think it would be probably appropriate for them to respond. Look, I'm not a war historian. Maybe someone can tell me I'm wrong on this, but you would expect a nuclear bomb dropped on us. And as someone who lives in, I don't know, maybe the closest major city to Russia, I guess maybe Seattle or San Francisco would beef with me on that. But I don't know. Not happy. Would not like to see that. How my hometown decimated because Brian Krasenstein on the X app is mad at Putin. So this is why I say my call to arms over and over. The liberals can never take power again. We have to win every single election. We cannot accept losing any elections. Every election needs to be a Republican victory. And not the Republicans are so great. It's that the liberals are that bad. They're so stupid. They're so angry. They're so illogical. They're so irrational. And that's always on full display here. That's always on full display. I will say, though, that Hillary Clinton had an interesting note that she said that Trump could win the Nobel Peace Prize if he ends the war with Ukraine. Misty caught this drop for us. So let's see. Let's see how this sounds.
If President Trump were the architect of that, I'd nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize.
We are on the precipice of a meeting between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska. Drawing on your experience as Secretary of State, if you were en route to Alaska, what would you be looking to get? What does an acceptable deal look like?
He is not meeting with a friend. He is meeting with an adversary, and an adversary who wants to see the destruction of the United States and the Western alliance. But if he could bring about the end to this terrible war, where Putin is the aggressor, invading a neighbor country, trying to change the borders, if he could end it without putting Ukraine in a position where it had to concede its territory to the aggressor, had to, in a way, validate Putin's vision of greater Russia, but instead...
So it's just so she's not as bad as some of the others. This is more reasonable than some of the others, but this is not great. I mean, it is not. I don't see the clear evidence that Putin decimating the U.S. is a high priority for him. I'm not saying that if he didn't clear his whole slate of priorities, that maybe that would come up eventually. I don't want to go quite that far, and I think he would like to see the alliance in the West weaken because they'll create a bigger vacuum for him. So that's kind of an obvious point. But I don't think he's preoccupied with the destruction of America. I don't get that impression at all. I think he doesn't like the idea of. I think he would like the idea of remaking the Soviet Union to some degree at least. And I think the idea that the United States would enable NATO countries to encroach on his vision of Russia, which Joe Biden clearly allowed for, I think that's what he views as a major problem. So I just don't like the sensationalist rhetoric coming from people. I'm glad she's out of power. And again, she's way more careful than the others. I'll play some Newsom clips later. I mean, she's probably the most careful of the group. But still, it's just really a relief that these people are not in charge, because their extremist rhetoric is only going to bring us closer to a potential war with Russia, which we don't want. Not that we wouldn't win it. It's that we don't need the loss of life. There's just no point.
Could really stand up to Putin to make it clear there must be a ceasefire. There will be no exchange of territory, and that over a period of time, Putin should be actually withdrawing from the territory he seized in order to.
And that's just politics. It's not going to happen. Not withdrawing from anywhere. So maybe Putin will withdraw from some of the stuff he tried to take under Biden, but not Donbass and the Crimea that he took from Obama and Clinton on their watch. So they botched that one, and Putin's getting that. He's keeping it, or else there's no way this thing ends in a peace summit. So and it sounds like Zelensky is not prepared to relinquish that. So if I'm wrong on that, I will eat a crow sandwich for all of you. But I think Putin's keeping that territory if there's going to be a ceasefire. So let's go on.
To demonstrate good faith efforts, let us say, not to threaten European security. If President Trump were the architect of that, I'd nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize.
All right, good. All right, good. That was Raging Moderates, whatever that is. I'm just shouting them out for the sake of getting the Hillary interview. Why she sounded pretty lucid there? I know she's got some health problems, but why didn't she want to run in 2028? The Democrats have no bench, as I've noted. We've got Gavin Newsom, who was out there, and he's going to redistrict California on behalf of Democrats, which he can try to do. I think there's a risk factor to it because California's already been gerrymandered. And I know this because I used to make fun of people who would benefit from it back when I was more obsessed with California politics when I was a little younger, had more time on my hands, and studied California politics in college, stuff like that. But I have to say I got an A in California politics at UC Berkeley, so take that to the bank, baby. That was an all-star class for me. Dominated that one. But it is a gerrymandered state, and that's why we've got, as I've noted, there's about 17, 18% of the congressional seats are Republican, even though well over 40% of the population is Republican. And Newsom thinks, well, we can gerrymander those seats away. It's going to be tough, and it's not necessarily a great retort to this idea that we object to redistricting in Texas, and thus we are going to redistrict in California. As I said, if Newsom is really serious, if he really hates gerrymandering, if he's really against it, number one, please explain to me what's the alternative, because no one's ever told me what else you do. You can't have some sort of council of elders. No one would trust the council of elders. There's not one person who both the left and the right would be comfortable with leading the council of elders, much less a whole council, to determine where the districts are drawn. None of us would trust anyone at that level who sits across the aisle at this point. So that's not going to happen. So then what are you going to do if you really hate it? You're going to redistrict so Democrats get more seats? That's completely illogical. That is that's like saying, I don't believe in the murder that you did, so I'm going to murder 3 people. It doesn't work that way. If you want to be logical, but they don't care about being logical. But that is, if he really hates gerrymandering, then what he should do as a show of good faith, he should redraw the maps in California to ungerrymander the way it already is, so Republicans get more seats. That's how you send a message you're opposed to gerrymandering. But we know he's not opposed to gerrymandering. He's opposed to Democrats losing power. That's it. So I will on the slate for next week is talk to Ken Paxton, who is he is in a tough race for that Senate seat in Texas. He's the Texas Attorney General, and this is one of these things where he is going to get a huge level of pushback from Democrats for that seat. That should be a Republican seat, but he's got some personal baggage, though he's an incredibly effective conservative actor. But he's got some personal baggage. He's really kind of easy to portray as not a great guy, but he's so effective. And so he's got my support fully, but the Democrats are really going to go all in on that race. We got to keep a close eye on that, but the redistricting battle, it could have downstream implications in that race as well. So I just want to keep that on everyone's radar. And you can already see the race getting nationalized. Check this out. Barack Obama weighed in on the Texas redistricting battle, which he was very lazy, so he doesn't like weighing in on this stuff, but he was out there. Let's hear what he had to say.
Because of your actions, because of your courage, what you've seen is California responding, other states looking at what they can do to offset this mid-decade gerrymandering that is highly irregular and is not what we should be doing to balance out the maps for this upcoming election.
But you see how dirty they are? This is why I say this. It's just these guys prove my point so often, why I say that they regard politics as the most important thing above all else. No close second. That's how the Democrats operate. It's such a clear example because if he really was a person of high integrity, he would say, we don't believe in this mid-decade gerrymandering, so we will not gerrymander our states. Instead, they're saying we will gerrymander our states even better and more good. So they're so exposed here. That's why I love the aggression. Make them react because their reactions are terrible. Anyway, all right. Newsom was campaigning, and it's important to note this because he's going to keep ruining my state while he tries to take away seats from Republicans. So, and while he runs for president. So let's hear what he's got.
We're here because Donald Trump on January 6th tried to light democracy on fire, tried to wreck this country. Tried to steal an election, as Alex just said, by trying to dial in for 11, almost 12,000 votes. And here we are, an open in plain sight before one vote is cast in the 2026 midterm election. And here he is once again trying to rig the system. He doesn't play by.
So first of all, this is classic projection. This is pure Saul Alinsky, and this is why I wrote Breaking the Law, because they got away with saying they hate democracy, that we're the ones who are threats to democracy. J6 was the worst thing ever. I go through the whole J6 saga and how absolutely lame it was. It was nothing remotely close to an insurrection. Congress is back in session 3 hours later. There was a one shot fired by the MAGA side. One gunshot the whole day by a cop at a MAGA person, Ashley Babbitt, who died. So it was not an insurrection. And these people just kept writing it using lawfare in order to try to make that front and center in the media. And that is their justification for all of the lawfare against Trump, all of which was bogus. And all of it was employing those novel legal interpretations that really means extra legal, illegal stuff. The law is broken. That's why I had to write this, because they're still dining out on this stuff that really was nothing. And I have to note, his hair is a perfect helmet today. So he's getting ready. If you guys don't think he's in it to win it, his hair is an absolutely flawless helmet. His hairline is just, it was like drawn with a pencil. You got to wonder about that at his age.
Different set of rules. He doesn't believe in the rules. And as a consequence, we need to disabuse ourselves of the way things have been done. It's not good enough to just hold hands, have a candlelight vigil, and talk about the way the world should be. We have got to recognize the cards that have been dealt. And we have got to meet fire with fire. And we've got to be held to a higher level of accountability.
Okay, good. It's all platitudes, but it means we're gonna cheat too.
As Senator Schiff said, Donald Trump, you have poked the bear, and we will punch back. Here's the good thing about California, folks. We're the size of 21 state populations combined. We're the fourth largest economy in the world. We're not a small, isolated state. I know they say don't mess with Texas. Well, don't mess with the great Golden State.
Oh, man, he's good. He's really good.
About the fact that we're affirming our independent commission, and we're calling for a national independent commission as well. Well, I think it's pretty sick and pathetic. And it's just said everything you need to know, the setting that we're under. That they chose the time, manner, and place to send their district director outside right when we're about to have this press conference. Said everything you know about Donald Trump's America. And that was top down. You know that for a fact. They'll deny it, I'm sure. Maybe they won't deny it. Said everything you know about the authoritarian tendencies of the President of the United States. I said in a moment ago, wake up, America. Wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election. You will have a president who will be running for a third term. Mark my word. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail a Trump 2028 hat from one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around.
Well, a lot of us are screwing around, but you know what? I'm not totally screwing around. I would love to see it. Let's see if we could do it. But the Constitution is going to stop it as of now. But look at how serious he is. He's really upset. Trump 2028. Well, what if the voters want that? I mean, what if we do? What if enough of us want it that we're willing to change the Constitution? He's not going to seize power by an authoritarian means. He barely even got to be president the first time he won, because he was so not authoritarian, because he was so deferential to the usual norms set out by the deep state that was trying to destroy him in Washington. It's just trying to win a primary. Just note this. None of this is resonating to anyone who's remotely open-minded.
The rules do not apply to him. The most corrupt president in history. He doesn't believe in free enterprise, crony capitalism. He is wrecking this country, wrecking the economy. He's a lawless president. Wake up, America. Wake up to what's going on.
No specifics. Never a specific. Always just a platitude. That's why I keep doing this, because I'm trying to see, does he have anything, or is he just able to string sentences together while he maintains good posture and good authoritarian or authoritarian body language? One more. That's all I'll put you through.
Yeah, well, I think you should start with Shreveport, Louisiana, in Speaker Johnson's district that has 6+ times the per capita murder rate of Nancy Pelosi's San Francisco. What about the carnage, Mr. President?
It is all of these areas where there is dense urban populations. That's where all these murders take place. They're all run by Democrats, and they try to act like cities that have a disproportionate amount of the population in these dense urban populations where there's a lot of murder. And you try to blame that on Republicans. No, we know why those murders are taking place. It's culture, it's values, it's fatherlessness, it's lack of law enforcement, Soros-funded DAs. Like, it's all that stuff that goes into it. So I'm just wondering who buys these arguments. I just feel like it's just such a soft, it's pretty soft. Anyway, here we go.
In Shreveport, why aren't you protecting the folks there? 8 of the top 10 murder states in this country, red states. What bullshit. And everyone knows it. Everybody knows it. Again, it's acts of authoritarianism. It's acts of power.
You always got to wait for the swear word. It's always happening now. There's always a swear word involved because that's where they feel like will get people fired up because they're concerned about energy. They're concerned about getting people fired up. It's always a concern for political movements because it's not just about money. They've got lots of money, but the money is probably not what it once was, but it's the bodies. Like, how many people are going to show up and rally and protest and vote and canvass and get involved? It's when you don't have a charismatic guy like Obama at the top, you can't discount that they need bodies, and he's trying to inspire people with swear words, and it's just very off-putting this day and age, I think. And I think that if you took in a vacuum people, do you trust Donald Trump on crime or do you trust Democrats on crime? It's the polling's going to come back. It's going to be a favorable issue for Trump. It was one of the more favorable for 2024, and he's like taking actual strides to try to improve upon it.
On a person that is trying to use his formal authority, and it's depleting, and it's weak. It's increasingly weak, and it's increasingly desperate. And that's why it's important for us at this moment to meet him head on, not just rhetorically, but through substantive counteractions. And that's what we're doing in California with this ballot issue.
He's doing a very funny thing with his hand, and it's not quite right. So just consultants, if you're watching the show, if you're working for Newsom, work with that hand thing. I've seen him do that one before. I don't think it's gonna work. All right. Other things, DC related story. So the DC new lawsuit challenging the federal takeover of the D.C. police. So the Democrats don't want law and order in their streets. The federal government is asking to come in and say, hey, we're going to help you. We're going to help you walk around your neighborhoods, not feel like you're going to get carjacked, maybe clean up your streets a little bit, make sure it's more pleasant to sleep at night. And they're like, no, we're suing. You can't do that. Why don't they want the help? They don't want the help because for them to take the help would to be an admission that they have a problem. And so just note this is the trap that Trump has set, and it's working. That you say that you're going to help them, and they say, no, I don't want your help, is a admission that they know they failed on their own. So it's a clean bust. I hope Trump cleans it up. And, it's an interesting thing because I was thinking about, could there be a mechanism for Trump to help out elsewhere? I would like to know. I would like to know if there's a way for him to help out in other cities, because I don't know if he's got the same authority, but I would welcome it out in California. There's a story out in D.C. Officers are clearing more homeless people from sites around Washington. I think about this so much in my city and really in the whole state, because I experienced this when I was a Berkeley student as well. But a lot of the parks become homeless shelters. They become crack dens. They become unusable for the citizens who pay for them, and they just become places where homeless people hang out. It was like this in D.C., where they have these adorable little squares, really pleasant places. And you need this if you're in a dense city. Now, a dense city is not my preferred layout for living. I like much more of I'm kind of a suburban guy. I'm not a rural guy, but it's the dense city always feels a little oppressive to me. But if you're in one of those cities like a DC or a New York, those little public squares where there's a little park and there's a basketball hoop and there's a couple of benches, that really makes a difference because it gives you a sense of at least there's a little bit of nature here in this concrete jungle. DC has a lot of those, and maybe they'll have a cool statue or monument to some historical figure of yesteryear that you'd forgotten. I live by George Washington Circle in Washington, D.C. It was very cool, a big George Washington statue. I remember vividly, walking through there after Master Marlow was born there at the George Washington Hospital. It just great little moments there in this densely urban area, but they get overrun by homeless people. And the homeless people camp out, and then the city gives up, and then there just becomes a tent city, and you can't walk there, you taxpayers. And so they're cleaning it up. And I think about this a lot because, as I've said repeatedly on the show, I'll say this a million times, the parks in LA are often overrun by homeless people, but I have a park in my neighborhood that's usable because I've got an HOA and they have a little fence around it. So the homeless people can't get in. They don't have a key fob. Pay good money for that key fob. And then you get this little slice of paradise when you go over there with your kids. So why aren't we doing that? Because
It apparently only takes about $130 a month for me to have an HOA that can keep the park nice. So why am I paying tens, if not hundreds of thousands in taxes every year, and we can't have parks in our cities? Why is it okay with you, Americans? Gavin Newsom? Why? So Attorney General Pam Bondi has tapped the DEA head as the D.C. Emergency Police Commissioner. That's Terry Cole. It's going to be D.C. Emergency Police Commissioner. I don't know much about Terry Cole. Seems fine. Seems like a good move. I just like it. He looks tough. I'll tell you that. See this photo we got of him. He's got an American flag. What is that? Pocket square going. He's got a cool paisley tie. He's got an American flag lapel, and he's bald and bearded. He just looks like the type of guy who's not going to take SHIT from people. No. All right, that's good. And I got to tell you, if you're going to take SHIT from people, and you shouldn't, then my recommendation is make sure you're really caffeinated when you do. Perhaps on Crockett Coffee. That's my recommendation. That's what I've been drinking. Crockett Coffee, good people, great tasting coffee, headed up by Buck Sexton and Clay Travis, broadcasters, do a really nice job with their show. Do a really nice job with a cup of coffee. This is roasted in our heartland, delivered fresh to your home. You can enjoy it while you're also supporting an anti-communist, pro-America brand of business. They also cut a portion of the proceeds to Tunnel to Towers Foundation, reminding you the people at Crockett Coffee never forget. And they had a promo code, of course, Alex at checkout at crockettcoffee.com. Type in Alex at checkout, 20% off your first order. And you know what? It's worth it at full price. Great cup of coffee. And when you're battling the left, you got to come prepared. You got to come well caffeinated. All right, just to round out some stuff, I will do a legal alien crime story. Ohio, Mexican illegal alien indicted for allegedly filming himself sexually abusing 12-year-old girl. I got to tell you, a lot of these people are not sending their best, and there's a lot, not all, but a lot of culture south of the border. They're just not as negative on the child sexual predation. And Coulter's written about this extensively. I'm not speaking about everyone. I'm not saying they're amazing people, but this is more common. It's just more common. That's why America is a culture as well. And we want to be very choosy when we're importing people in our communities. And we don't want to import people in Cincinnati, Ohio, a place that I like very much. I've always liked Cincinnati. I've been many times. You don't want people being imported from Mexico who are cool with filming themselves abusing 12-year-old girls. Not to say everyone's bad down there and everyone's perfect up here, all the natural caveats you need. But we don't want 26-year-old legal aliens committing child rape and then filming it. We don't want that. Kamala Harris' stepdaughter has vented, everything does feel horrible and I'm suffering from climate anxiety. I love when the left does this because it just shows you that they don't have real problems. Because my anxiety is about paying the bills, making sure my kids are in a great school, making sure they're doing well, making sure my family's healthy, making sure that the things that I'm passionate about, where I feel we're making progress at a national level, business is going well, that I'm in touch with God, that I'm in good shape, I'm healthy. That's what I'm sitting around worried about. And then you get these people who are these, single privileged women, particularly white women, and it's being, I'm really care about climate justice right now, like climate anxiety. The community is going to be oppressed because of climate change, and who knows, maybe the glaciers are going to melt, and some of our real estate on the coast it's not going to be worth as much. And that's where they're at. And I just love when they say these things. And this is part of the benefit of the left being as bubbled as they are, is I don't think they are aware of a lot of the stupid stuff they say. And that is a service I'll provide for you in the Marlow Show each and every day. I'll provide for you all of the clips when you're saying that she's experiencing a lot of climate anxiety. Super high IQ individual. Super high IQ, and one of the most beautiful women on earth, Kamala Harris' stepdaughter, Ella Emhoff. All right, last one that I think we're too late, so I'm not going to do this. Maybe we'll get some clips for Monday, and we can talk about it. But there's a lot of very odd developments in the NFL cheerleading ranks, the male cheerleaders, which there's always been male cheerleaders, but these seem to be flamboyantly homosexual cheerleaders. I think one might even be a trans. So it's Minnesota's doing it. I think there's some others. So I want your take. Aloha at alexmarlow.com. What's your take on the male cheerleaders? Is it I understand there's some. Wasn't George Bush a male cheerleader? George W. Bush? I think he was. See, that's not one you advance in the resume. I'm not saying it's the end of the world if you want to be a male cheerleader. I'm sure that we only have the best male cheerleaders in the Marlow audience. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm anxious to see, not anxious, but I'm eager to see what your reactions are to that. Especially the ones who are doing the flamboyant stuff. That's what you got to stop. No one's going to an NFL game to see a flamboyant homosexual cheerleading. They're just not. It's just not the product. So
But again, if they're strong men, maybe that helps in some way. But give me your take, and maybe I'll show you some of the videos next time. That'll be today's show. Thanks, Misty. Thanks, John Cassio, for pulling the audio. All of you for picking up 10,000 copies of Breaking the Law, passing them to all your friends and family members. Subscribing to the show, 5 stars, and check me out on Larry Elder Monday and Tuesday. And, of course, your podcast feed. I will have episodes for you as well. And have a terrific weekend, and thanks for all the love and support.